Live from the Business RadioX studio in Atlanta, it's time for Organization Conversation, brought to you by Wall Control Storage Systems. Wall Control gives you the storage and organization you crave. Now, here's your host, Richard Grove.
Hey guys, welcome back to Organization Conversation. I am here with Chris Lalomia. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, this is a good one. You guys are going to love him. We'll get all into it, but he is a man with a lot of personality, and he's just a lot of fun to be around and have on an episodes. To get a little more introduced, Chris is the founder of the Trusted Toolbox. He runs a podcast called the Small Business Safari Podcast, which I was actually on, I guess, a few weeks ago. If you look on either one of our social channels, you can find that episode and listen to it. It was a ton of fun, just a really good time, great conversation. He's also the author of From the Zoo to the Wild, so you can check that out. I'm sure we'll get into that as well. And then trainer, and would you say coach also for the Home Service Institute? Is that a good
Absolutely.
way to put it?
Yep.
So that's Chris. A little bit of background. Another cool thing before we get into it, little anecdotally, which was cool. There's another radio station in Atlanta called WSB Radio. It's a little bit bigger than Business Radio. Or is it bigger, John? You would probably know better as far as traffic goes. Yeah, I know as far as like web traffic, I know Business RadioX has a ton, but WSB is like the major big leagues. It's probably the most listened to radio station in Atlanta, I guess. Okay, so anyhow, it was funny because
Business RadioX is
right behind it, and Organization Conversation is right behind
on the heels.
The Dave Baker Home Fix It show.
Exactly,
almost exactly the same. No, I'm joking. This is one's major leagues, but it was funny because I saw on your social media. It was the Saturday after we had recorded. I saw you were going to be on WSB. I was like, oh, that's cool. So me and my wife were going to go to Home Depot, got in the car, and I was like, I just turned it on, and lo and behold, I heard you. And I was able to tell my wife, look, this is the guy that I was on the podcast with on Wednesday. So I wasn't just drinking whiskey and having fun with the guys. We were actually doing something.
See, he's the real deal.
Yeah, exactly.
At least he thinks he is.
Yeah. So Chris, we're honored to have you on the show. We'll get into it all, but you're on a lot of things. You guest on a lot of huge shows. You built a great brand. So it's an honor to have you. Thanks for coming on.
No, of course, man. I look forward to this.
Yeah. So to help the audience get a little more familiar with you, what is the Trusted Toolbox?
So I started the Trusted Toolbox 17 years ago now when I saw a need for a professional handyman service that could come into people's houses. I was in the corporate world. I got to that burnout stage where I just hated what I was doing. You and I have something in common. We both have degrees in engineering. Mm-hmm. So you would think that I'm logical and organized, but I can prove you otherwise pretty quickly. But I started this, thought maybe I could franchise the idea, but really today we've grown into, we are the largest handyman in Atlanta, which is cool. Doesn't really help our customers, but it really helps my techs. My technicians, I have 16 of them that we work all of North Metro Atlanta, do all the small stuff around the house, drywall repair, hanging a door, fixing your deck, doing that punch list. Our call to fame, if you will, is the handyman for a day. Okay. Where we come out and knock a bunch of stuff out in one day. So we run it as a service. And of course, I've got an office and with scheduling and try to put professionals around it. And then we also now do remodeling, everything from decks. Our specialty is bathrooms and kitchens.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm going to have to actually reach out to you about some stuff I need done as well. So it's, I have a laundry list that I don't want to try to tackle, and it sounds like you guys are like the perfect solution for that. When it's more than just if it's more than enough to be dangerous kind of thing.
Exactly right. At this point now, I'm pretty handy, and I went out and did some handyman stuff 2 weeks ago and hurt myself to the point where it was hard to walk and ride around in the truck. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to retire and let my guys do that. I have cultivated a business, and I got some guys who are pretty good. And I'm getting a little older, and I probably shouldn't have been on the roof.
Yeah, exactly. To that point, how have your other businesses and projects evolved? So you have a podcast, you wrote a book, you're a teacher, a trainer. How has that progression looked from the time you started the Trusted Toolbox, walking all the way through it?
Yeah, great question. As I started the business, everybody says, Simon Sinek is a famous one for saying, hey, start with your why. My why in the beginning was to make money. Yes. I'd love to tell you it was more altruistic, and it really wasn't. It was just I thought I saw a niche and a service, and I could play on it. Then I realized that I was not just in the handyman business. I was really in the training business. Mm-hmm. So what I do is I really focus on training my guys around customer service, the processes it takes to get to your house, and then finally the technical abilities. And so I found myself in the training environment. And I learned that how come every time I have to learn a lesson, it costs me time and a lot of money. So I say, I always joke when I write a book, and I started writing a book, and I just started puking on a page and putting it all down, and then had somebody smarter than me put it all together, make it smarter sounding. And that's how I came up with From the Zoo to the Wild, just to share that with the, other people about how they could scale. And that's the same thing with the podcast. People say, hey, are you making any money with it? I'm like, you know what? It really satisfies an itch for me, though, because I love getting together with my co-host, Alan, and having great people on where we talk about business. And I'll tell you, almost every time I come out of that, the next morning I go, I got to put that in my biz. That was a great idea. Oh, yeah. I'm glad I got to meet people like you and get to see what you guys do with wall control. It was so cool.
Yeah, that's you really nailed it too with it's like you, and the same thing with this. It's like you don't know exactly why or how you're going to track ROI on things, but it's the right call, and it's going to move you in the right direction. Move your business and yourself mentally and where your motivation comes from. I totally get that. I think that it's what gives folks an edge and it's also, as a couple engineers, that's not really our natural, like most of them have to see like absolute analytics on returns and numbers and crunch it all. But you have to, if you have the ability to just go by gut and feel a little bit, I think that's where you really gain a competitive advantage. So
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Taking that engineer, having met you, I'm sure you and I, when we were in engineering school, may have been a little bit different than the other engineers we were around.
For sure. Yes. that was a point I was going to bring up as well. Yeah.
Yeah. We were just different.
Yeah.
Yes. We learned I love the study of engineering, the ability to do problem solving, to do linear analytical thought. All of the skills that I learned in school were definitely helpful. But looking back on it now, I think if I would have taken one of those tests, they probably would have said, you need to go into marketing and business because you're just not that smart.
Yeah. I know that's exactly my path as well. It was
not banging on them. But.
Yeah, no, I'm the exact same way. It was the same path, and I love the optimization. Like that's just a fun kind of thing. But you have to be able to think with that marketing side of your brain as well. And I think that is an advantage of ours, like the two of us. Yeah. So going back to the Trusted Toolbox and some of your other brands, what do you guys typically like to do with your customers? How do you treat them? What does that customer relationship look like? What makes the Trusted Toolbox unique in that regard?
That's a great question. The thing that makes us different is understanding what the expectations of the customer are first. And a lot of times when people call a service, you don't know what to expect. You do know that they're going to come invade your space and they're going to come invade your time. We're probably working on your number one asset in your financial portfolio. Mm-hmm. And if not your financial portfolio, definitely in your emotional portfolio. It's where you raise your kids. It's where you put your head down at night. It's your personal time. And now we're coming to invade it. And understanding what the expectations of a customer of what a transaction should look like for them has been big. And so we do, I think, a very good job of setting that expectation so that we have a chance to either meet it or, in a lot of cases, exceed it. And that has been probably the biggest thing for us to learn and the biggest thing for me to have to train my guys on.
Yeah. How did you guys start down that path? Did you recognize the need for that immediately, or was that like you started seeing the same kind of questions or friction points and you're like, all right, something's up here and we need to do it different?
I love this one. I put this in my book. I only had 4 guys and I was everything. I was answering the phones.
Yes,
I was doing the estimates. I was doing some of the work. I had 4 guys. I was learning the business. And in the course of 2 days, I only had 4 guys. I had 5 people say, I'm going to call you back. And so we call that the callbacks. 5 people in 2 days. I basically shut everybody down. I said, hey guys, why don't you just take off on Monday? And I went out and took care of all 5 on Friday and Saturday. And what I found out is they weren't doing a bad job, my technicians. It was that me, the estimator, missed something. Mm-hmm. I didn't ask them to start the job with a signature confirming the work that needed to be completed. I didn't ask them to get a signature when the job was completed to say that the customer was happy with it.
Yeah.
So they didn't know they were done or not done. And then I had the classic one where she didn't have the heart to tell him he needed to leave the house. And he stayed there till 6 o'clock finishing while they were in there eating dinner.
Yeah.
And she said, it's not that I didn't like him. I appreciated that, but I wished he would have started a little earlier and told me he was going to run a little later because he really took over our dinner.
Yeah.
And he was actually in the bathroom on the other side of the room. So I get it.
Yeah,
and that's when I learned.
That's amazing. That's awesome insight because a lot of people wouldn't think about that. It's not the work. Everybody thinks, oh, the work or the job or the result, but it's the soft stuff that people don't like, that like rubs them wrong or makes the difference and makes them smile. Yeah, that's huge. That's good insight. It's just sitting back and observing like human interaction and how that works together. And good job for an engineer too. That's normally something we don't pick up on.
I did not pick up people. I didn't like interfacing with people.
Yeah.
But there's a theory out there. It's called peak end theory.
Okay.
It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And it's your last thing you leave your customer with. And when you think about the DoubleTree, they always leave you with a chocolate chip cookie when you go there. So you remember the chocolate chip cookie if you ever had to stay at a DoubleTree, right? So I don't tell my guys, hey, you can start like crap and finish great. You got to start good. But if the end doesn't match up with the start, that's where people go, that just wasn't the best experience. I just didn't like the way they cleaned up, or I didn't like the way they said goodbye to me. And I've had that happen.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, see, look, just like we were talking about earlier, I learned so much on this podcast. That's a fantastic point I'm jotting down and going to take with me. So it's intuitive, but it's simple, but people just don't think about it and they don't focus on it. And if you make a point to do those things, you'll see that improvement. And
my handymen are not built like that. They're introverted.
Right.
They're very good at doing work.
Right.
Because you don't want an extroverted handyman. You've all had them, right? And you're like, the guy's a little too chatty, right? Hey, can you get back to work, buddy?
Yeah, man. When we first moved, it was Xfinity or whatever service it was, and that was the same thing. And it drug into the night. Like whoever remembers like their utilities being turned on? Nobody does, except I remember that because it was just, I didn't want that. It was like 8:00 at night probably, and they were still banging around on stuff. And it's just like, man, leave.
Right. Yeah. Because you feel like you have to watch them, even though they're like, hey, I'm just doing my thing. Well, but you're here, you're in my house again.
Exactly. And you can't relax. And it's they're in there and you got your kids and it's just a weird situation. And it is what you remember. That's what you remember.
Absolutely.
And you don't want that again. Or you do want that again. You remember the good and the bad. But yeah.
That's why we pride ourselves on 40% of our business comes from repeat customers because they know what to expect. It's not always the same guy. Now we do have guys who are consistently requested, but there are different people because we have different skill sets that are required when they come out there, but it's the process.
Yeah.
They get a text message 2 hours before we show up. They get a text and call 30 minutes before we show up. They know they're going to have to sign something to get started. They're going to have to acknowledge something when we're completed. And they know that we're going to come back if anything doesn't go right because it's construction and sometimes things just don't go right.
Yeah. How long has the Trusted Toolbox been in business?
Since 2008.
Gotcha.
So that's
what
seminal
a year to
point.
Start too. Yeah.
Yeah. Timing's not my thing.
No,
not really. Yeah. Nobody told me. And I was working at the bank at the time. I was in banking.
Yeah.
And I was working with our economist and he never said recession. He said single state recession, Michigan, which I happen to be from, which I hurt my feelings a little bit.
Yeah.
But then he never said we were going to collapse. And but nobody knew that was coming.
Isn't that insane? Like the people that have presumably their finger on the pulse have no idea. And it's like it is now, really. Like it's the way I feel like it's that same sort of situation when they talk about black swan events and things like that. And it's like, even this, not to go off the rails, like we talked about, but like the Japan lowering their rate. And then all of a sudden stocks crashed for a day because of the carry trade and all this. Like, how did nobody know that was going to happen? And that's such a straightforward, you do this thing happens, and you never heard about any of that. So
cause and effect. And and like I said, I was at the bank and I was in the credit department and had guys who were doing it. My team at that time, I had come in to help put the reporting together, and we kept looking at it and said, it's going to be California. It's going to be Florida coast. It's not going to be Atlanta.
Yeah.
Surely was Atlanta. So those first 2 years, you can have those back. But that's when I started. Was in 2008.
That's like with wall control too. And when I came to wall control, it was 2007 or 2008. And it was the same kind of thing. I remember all the way up to 2010, just how like it was week to week, making payroll and making sure things don't fall apart. Like it was a hard time to try to get traction. So how did you do it? How did you what does the progression look like through the growth of the Trusted Toolbox and the other branch you have?
So the Trusted Toolbox, I would tell you no less than 3 times. I probably should have shut it down. My wife would agree with that too. There are a lot of 3:30 in the night.
Yes.
Conversations curled up on the couch with yourself, which are not fun.
I know. Yeah, I hear you.
And it's tough. So what you learn about yourself, especially when you're in business, is that you have optimism and you have that grit that Angela Duckworth talks about famously, or some of these other great coaches out there. You have to get through it. You got to solve problems, which I would tell you that was my mantra, as I actually had right over my computer for 2 years, was today you're going to solve a problem.
That's awesome.
And so that's back to our engineering background, right?
It is. And it's, again, such a simple thing, but I'll tell you this, like hiring people, there's so few people that want to solve problems, or that are natural problem solvers that look for a problem and try to solve it. And I reckon if you do that, then you're like the best in my book as far as employees go. Because a lot of people, it just doesn't come natural. And that's fine. Not everybody's a natural born problem solver, but if you can do that, is probably, in my opinion, over the years that I've been at Wall Control and everything I've done, that is the biggest differentiator between employee to employee and people we work with. If you just look for the problem and try to solve it. Yeah, I think that's what any good entrepreneur, that's what you have to be. You have to be a problem solver. And the same thing in engineering. Just look for the problem and fix it.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you look back on where our businesses started, we're about the same time. We've gone through the Great Recession. Then we've gone through this little thing they called COVID, where they shut the entire world down. I don't think it's over. I think if you think it's behind you, it's not. But you can go back to some of our Depression era grandparents that talked about coming out of this. I think we lived it. And I think a lot of times we don't take credit for it. We just keep going. But you also got to take that lesson learned and know that it probably is going to happen again. So you better be ready.
Yeah. How are, speaking to that at a macro level, what are you guys seeing these days? What's the landscape look like? So a lot of our listeners are small business owners and solopreneurs, makers, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm sure they would like to hear what our perspectives are on where things are at, where they're going. Yeah.
So I'm still putting it together. I would tell you this. I've been at it since 8, been through a number of presidential cycles. And what usually happens is the beginning of the cycle, it slows us down in the home repair business. But after, I found that both parties, regardless, spending money and working on houses, because guess what? Houses still are aging and work still has to go down. Now, you can get into the politics all you want, but as a business owner, we don't have time for it. There's nothing I can do that will affect the presidential election as the Trusted Toolbox or Small Business Safari or sitting here on Business RadioX. But what I can do is prepare for what's going to happen. And right now, the trends are telling us that people will start, especially here in the Atlanta area, start working on their houses more in 25. They're going to see more inventory that the people will move to. And we're also seeing still an influx of people. I think it was last year alone, we added basically the size of Albany here in the metro Atlanta area. So we're still getting people moving here. Yeah. And that's not going to change anytime soon. So I'm actually, again, if the rest of the world will calm down a little bit, if some of the other things, external noise factors will go down, I think we should have a good time here in Atlanta. If you're an international business, like your stuff can go international, with competition, I think you need some of that stuff to calm down, and maybe one party can handle it other than the other, but that doesn't matter. But there's nothing we can do about it to make it work.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're going to continue to have to navigate this kind of stuff and the variables of unknown parties and that sort of thing. Yeah. We're seeing the same trends, and again, hoping that, rates maybe come down, people start moving around a little more, because similar to your business, ours does better when people are moving around a lot. Getting a new house, a couple $100 to get your organization set up. Whereas now, if people are stuck in their house, they don't want to spend any more money on it, and they want out. We're looking forward to seeing what the future holds as far as that goes. But yeah, same kind of thing, just holding steady and doing what we can today to set ourselves up for success in the future. These sort of things and little projects, just trying to introduce people to our brand and develop that relationship with our existing customer base, so we have a solid brand to stand on as we move forward and things start to improve a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about your business is you almost have to make a market. And that is, everybody thinks pegboard and has a standard in their head of what it is. And then when you see your product, it's completely different. But I don't have a market out there that I can compare it against. Like in my world, my market is, and people say you have competition. I really don't. It's one breath I might be working against a painter. I might be going against a remodeler. I might be going an electrician, a plumber, or a handyman. But my market's been made, and the people are, I need something done in my house. I can't do it. And the trend today is that a lot of people are doing less and less in their homes.
They are. Yeah, that's true. And they don't want to have to sift through all that level of specificity to find the right person. They want to call somebody. They want a trusted toolbox. They want to call somebody who can go in there and figure it out for them. They don't know what they need. Sometimes you might think, like we had a situation at Wall Control this past week where it was crazy. So our HVAC's in the ceiling, and the drain pan filled up, and it was dripping really bad. So when people first came in, they were like, "Oh, the roof's leaking," because it was like torrential downpours the weekend before. And so we take the tile out, and we're like, "It's not the roof; it's coming out of the HVAC pan." So we called HVAC guys, and they come out. So first we were going to call a roofer, then we didn't do that. Call our HVAC company, they come out. They get up there, and dude, the pan folded in the middle, and it sounded like Niagara Falls in our office. Just, I don't know how many tens of gallons came flooding out.
Oh no.
So we're like, okay, so clearly there's a situation there. It wasn't the HVAC pan. It was the problem was it had shifted, so the plumbing wasn't going the right way. So then they have to call the plumber. But all that to say, if you're like a homeowner and you don't know who to call, that's 3 different services that you would have had to gone through and paid for them to come out and their service call, and then them tell you that they can't do it, and then they got to get not the roof, not the HVAC. You need a plumber. You know what I mean?
Water is your enemy anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's that story. I'm smiling because I'm feeling you. Because it's painful to listen to, and I've seen it. I see it a lot in showers. Shower pans that fail, and they start out with just a little leak. It's just a little spot on your ceiling, and it turns out to your whole bathroom's got to go.
Yeah, and then you wait to the very last minute to handle that sort of thing. Yeah, we've had a good conversation here, Chris. It's going by pretty fast. I want to make sure we get everything covered you want to talk about. Do you have anything exciting coming up? Any new projects? Anything you want to let our audience know about that we haven't already covered?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the fact that I got on this. I've been asked to be a co-host on the All Four Seasons Home Show, which goes out here in Atlanta, and it's on Extra 106.3, which you can get the app for and listen to our podcast. You can also get out there in podcast worlds of the All Four Seasons Home Show. And we've had some great guests on with people who are good service providers here in Atlanta. So I've really enjoyed doing that. Have a great time kicking it around with Dan, and that's been great. It's also good advertising for the Trusted Toolbox.
For sure.
We're having some fun. We've also expanded to Athens. So we've got 3 guys out there working now with a manager and starting to pick up a lot of business in Athens, because that is one area where I've seen a lot of people move to from Atlanta.
It's growing fast for sure. I can tell you firsthand. I know that. So
I bet you guys have seen some more product moving up there. Probably.
I mean, yeah, and we're before COVID hit. Well, when COVID hit, again, talking about crazy business cycles, it was. And I don't mean to cut you off. We can keep going.
No, I want to hear this. Yeah.
No, so basically, COVID hit, lockdown happened. Everything went ground to a halt. There was nothing like it. Amazon's one of our larger customers, Home Depot. These guys stopped sending POs. So we were like, what's going to happen? So sent our workforce. We reduced hours to try to figure out what's going on. Then a couple months go by, stimulus starts flowing. Everybody realizes they're not getting fired, but they're at home and they're bored and they have nothing to do. Then business just starts booming, like crazy, crazy stuff. So to the point where we were like, we're going to need more warehouse space. And we're going to need it fast. We thought we might even need co-packers to try to help us keep up with demand at the time. So we started looking around Atlanta, and just ridiculous prices for real estate, for warehouse space. So all that to say, we've got our eyes set out toward Athens ourselves if we ever need to add more space. Like we almost bought property and started putting another warehouse out there over the last couple of years, but we draw that back just to see where things land. But long story short, we'll be moving our stuff out that way too when we need more space. Yes, it's just where everybody's going.
Yeah, it's been interesting to go out there and learn that market as well, thinking of how to apply the Trusted Toolbox principles to a smaller market.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of ups and downs with it, been at it for a little over a year now. And it's really starting to hit its stride, which is great.
Yeah, that's to your point about problem solving and just being a business owner and being resilient and not letting it stop you. Just keep pushing and solving the problems out there and making it work. One other kind of changing gears a little bit. We have, like I mentioned, a lot of like makers, small business owners, folks that are just one man or one woman show getting their businesses off the ground. And when they listen to this, I know they're inspired by what you've done, doing the same thing, starting in the worst recession that we've seen in the last 20, 30 years. And then going from that to multiple employees, to multiple locations, to getting on syndicated radio shows that are all over the place. So what advice would you have to them? And I'm curious too, like for instance, WSB and the project you were just talking about, how did that come to be? How you're not just doing handyman service and then Dave Baker comes and taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, come on my show. There's things that had to happen along the way and places you had to put yourself, things you had to be a part of that brought those opportunities. So can you speak to that at all to someone listening who spent last night at 3 a.m. curled up on their couch and feel like they want to give up, but hear this and think, you know what, maybe I'll keep taking these next steps and I could be like this guy, Chris.
Yeah. You wake up, you solve a problem. But the other thing that has been big for me is my network. You've heard phrases, and this is cliche, your network brings your net worth.
Yeah.
And that's how I got myself into positions that we just talked about there. That is my time, which is hard when you have a young one and 2 young ones. And now my kids are older, but put myself out there in the evenings, going to chamber events, going to weekly networking groups. BNI is obviously one of the bigger names out there, and that was a key way to grow our business. But that started to grow my net worth.
Exactly.
And now I'm actually going to become the president of the National Association of the Remodeling Industry here in Atlanta, and I'm on the national board as well. So I get to meet other remodelers who have been through it and shown me how they do their remodeling work, which I want to get into. And so that's been great. So the networking to bring your network, that's been big. And even if you're introverted, there's a great guy out there on LinkedIn. I think it's the Introvert's Guide to Networking.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know who that guy is, but because I'm not that guy. I'm the extroverted guy who loves going out there and meeting people, but you still can do it. And I think that's a inexpensive way to get your name out there, because you can go out there and drop a lot of money in advertising, but if you don't know where it's going and know your ROI,
Yeah, for sure,
you can definitely lose it quick.
Yeah. Start with the networking. It's funny because you feel like an old friend, Chris, but we met through that same kind of thing. It was like through John and Business RadioX and that network, just one person introducing another. And I would say too, like, just like we've been introduced, be the person who's doing the introductions, because that's gonna pay off in the future too. Like, be the networker for people. Everybody out there knows somebody you could introduce somebody else to, and if you become that person for them, then that's the go-to. Is what I've seen as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about it like that, but be that connector. It doesn't pay off for you today. That's all right. You know, send that email, a 3-way email, let them have that conversation.
Exactly.
And if it works for them, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. At least you did it.
Yeah.
And how long did that take you? 5 minutes?
Exactly.
It's not a big deal. So when you go there, don't just grab cards and start sending out blanket emails, because I've never responded to a blanket LinkedIn request.
Either have I. Goodness gracious. Like, how many, if I thought about this, like, I would almost want to start a social channel where I respond, or I wouldn't do it, but I have somebody respond yes to every quick 5 to 10 minute phone call that I get on LinkedIn that people want to have. It's just, I don't know how that works. I guess cast a wide net and somebody bites, but
I'll tell you what was wild was the guy who built my very first home in Charlotte. I got one of those messages from, and I could tell it was a form letter. And I'm like, hey, Brent. So I said to me, Bob, I said, realize this is form. By the way, it's definitely a form, but good to hear from you again. I realized it wasn't from you, but I still remember my first house that you built for me back in 1998. So he wrote back, yeah, I tried something. I don't know if that worked.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it didn't, buddy.
It's got to work for somebody, because it's getting worse and worse. Like, I'll get off 5 messages that they want a quick 10 to 15 minute chat. So it's
where they're going to bring you that many more leads, or they want to buy your business.
Yeah. That's what and it's like,
I'm like, you don't want to buy this business.
No.
Buddy.
Yeah. They're all, and yeah, they want access to capital. LinkedIn's a Wild West, man. That's something. So one more question I had that I was just curious about: is there anything through your journey that was any big breaking point that was like, it went from 10 to 100, or some sort of step in improvement? Was there anything that made, and I see your face now, it's hard.
I always thought, I'll tell you, at the moment, I felt like this is it. I hired the right sales guy.
You're going exactly where I thought.
Or I was like, this is it. Tomorrow I will make $1 million. Yeah. Or this is it. Next month we're going to bust through and we're going to double our operation.
Yes.
And the answer is no, it never. It was consistently going in there and solving a problem.
Yep.
And then the next day solving another one. And then over time, I went from $0 in revenue to this year will end up at $6.5 million. So
awesome. Yeah.
But that didn't, 16 years, I'm an overnight success. Yeah. And it didn't
so
happen
funny.
where I doubled every single year.
We didn't talk about that question at all. It wasn't anything that I had written down, but I wanted to ask you that because I knew that was going to be the answer. Because I feel like, and I think people need to hear that. Like, they think, oh, this is going to be it. This is going to be the big break. And it's not. I'm just telling you, maybe, I don't know, maybe even 1 in 1,000 people, but it isn't. It's the grind, and you just keep grinding at it. And even same thing. We got Home Depot came on as a .com realtor or a .com vendor. Amazon, you land these things and you're like, oh, that's going to be the thing. And it doesn't. It compounds. Yeah. But compounding takes time. And that's the lesson that it's funny because you could have said, you'd be like, oh yeah, in 2012, so-and-so, or like, the other lesson that I learned from that is don't put all your eggs in a basket and think it's going to be the thing that don't over leverage yourself thinking this is going to be the big thing. We were at a Lowe's, this was years ago, at a Lowe's, like a walkthrough where you set up your section in one of their fake stores and they come through, the buyer looks at it, and so getting invited to do that's a big deal. And we were talking to somebody who was next to us, and they're like, man, we hope this works because we got it all. It's all riding on this. And it's just like, dude, it's not going to work. Even if it works, it's not going to work. Like, it's not. Oh. Yeah. So I don't want people to think. The lesson is, one, keep grinding at it. Keep solving problems, like you said. But two, don't think if I just go all in on this, it's going to work. This one thing, like it's the compounding over time of those efforts put in. Yeah.
If you go out there and follow me on social, you'll see on my Insta, my Facebook, or LinkedIn, it's all positive. You know, I'm not going to share the negative stuff. I don't think you want to see it. But trust me, guys, there's a lot of negative. What do they say? That I think 90% of your thoughts are negative, and the good news is 80% of those thoughts are repeated every day.
Yeah.
There's some days where I'm 99.9% negative, bro.
Yes.
But you don't want to see that on Facebook. People say, oh, you got to be real. No, you really don't want to hear what's going on in my brain sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't want to ruminate it on and focus. I don't want to put it out. Yeah, I 100% agree. It's it's like the other thing too is not all your thoughts and feelings are real. Like it's okay to not react to them or be responsive to them. And I think that's the same thing. When you don't put it out there, you're not giving it light. And everybody knows, maybe they don't know, but it is hard. Business is hard. Like 99% of it is the grind. And there's days that are just straight up suck. And there's nothing, it's hard to find anything positive in it. So that's why I don't want to pump any more of that out than is already out there. Yeah.
But you're not going to become an influencer tomorrow. And if it is, good for you. However, you've seen some of them. What you don't know is probably all the negative behind it and all the false things that you think you're seeing, you're reading into that probably aren't there.
Yeah. And to that point, this is an interesting kind of thing. I've got some friends that we text with all the time that we work closely with, and they've had some things go like straight up viral, hundreds of millions of views, like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, like virtually overnight. And you look at that and you're like, man, they killed it. They're there. They made it. But what they got was an audience that they can't convert. Like it's like a viral audience for one thing isn't a good audience. Like it's a cool looking number, but it isn't anybody who's engaging. So it's like one of the guys, I think they had a video, started a YouTube channel, video took off, 0 to 200,000 subscribers in a week or two. And he's made a whole other like brand based on, look at this audience that I have that I can't do anything with. And he's handling it very well. It's like walking through the process of it. But all that to say, sometimes what you wish for and you're going for might not be the thing you want or that you can even use. Like you're better off with 300 followers that are really engaged, that love your brand. That's a much better audience than 200,000 random, potentially half even bots that you can't engage with.
I'll be honest, I hear that, but in the beginning, oh no, I wanted to be that guy.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
You're but okay, but really, yeah. No, I really
exactly.
Yeah, I hear you, but I can't get that 200,000.
Yeah, can I have that too? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then you find out they're from the ages of 13 to 21. I'm like, they're not buying houses, working on houses. Don't need them.
No, it actually screws up all of your engagement analytics. Like the 200 people you need to see it do not see it because the algorithm thinks it needs to go to the 200,000 13 to 15-year-olds that liked your viral video that was fun and quirky. That's not a recipe for social media success. And then you spend the next however many years spinning your wheels just posting stuff because you feel like you got a good audience, and you don't. You're better off just throwing it out and starting over. So
I know it's hard. Yeah. It's a great one.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. Chris, I don't want to keep you. I know you've got a meeting you've got to go head to after this.
Actually, I'm part of the nonprofit that I'm part of. So I've got to run our executive committee meeting because the president is actually getting dental surgery. So I was like,
I'd rather run the meeting than do that.
Yeah, that's what I was like. That's exactly where I was. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather be where I'm at. Yeah. So no, I've really enjoyed this. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, if anybody wants to connect with me, I'd love to hit me up. I'm Chris Lalomia, the Trusted Toolbox. You can see me on LinkedIn. I'm on all the Insta, Facebook. I'm on TikTok. Don't do TikTok a lot, but I have somebody who helps me with that one.
That's the same as us. We're the same. My cousin actually. Yeah, he runs our TikTok account because he's a senior at Georgia Tech, and it's just he's more.
That's right.
I don't even know the words, so it's just what they're saying. That makes sense to me. I feel like an old man, but yeah, absolutely. And also, I'll say too, if you guys already follow me, you can go on my account, and me and Chris collaborated on the episode. I was on his podcast, so you can find him that way too. But what's the best website and email to get to you if they need to, or if you have any other
hit me up info. At Chris at thetrustedtoolbox.com. That's CHRIS, thetrustedtoolbox.com. I got a website, chrislalomia.com, where you can get to all my different stuff that I'm working on.
Cool. Thanks for coming on, Chris. It's been fun as usual.
Yeah, this has been great. Love coming in here. Love the studio. It's amazing.
Yeah, we just don't have the whiskey collection you do, but
that's right.
We need to work on that.
But it is 10 o'clock in the morning.
That's true. Exactly.
I usually wait till noon. Later.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks for coming on, Chris. It's been fun.
All right, man. Loved it.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Organization Conversation is brought to you by Wall Control. a family-owned and operated producer of best-in-class wall-mounted organizers for your home or business, made right here in the USA. To learn more, go to wallcontrol.com.